So my name is Samuel Kanja, and today I would wish to talk about the process or the stages of handling loss and grief, and I will base it on a research done by a lady called Kubler-Ross, and for her she did research on how people deal with loss, especially death, when you have lost a family member, a close person. But also we know people have lost many things. You can lose a job, you can lose a child, you can lose a family member, you can lose a friend, you can lose a property, you can lose your health, you can lose something you cherish, even a relationship. You can go through a breakup or even marriage, and when you lose each of these items, especially when it is emotionally connected to you because of how special it was to you, sometimes people take long to come into terms with it. And through these stages, we are going to see at what the many levels that a person would struggle with. Some will go through the whole range, others, some of them, and others they will keep even repeating from one to the other, to the end, then back to the start, depending on how are they managing the loss. Because we say pain cannot be shared. People heal differently, people recover differently, and people face losses in a different way, also depending on their personality. A choleric will not deal with loss the same way a melancholic or even a phlegmatic or even a sanguine will deal with it. But ultimately, each of them will have to face the loss in a particular way or in a different manner. So, what did this lady find out? She found that there are 5 stages which are not linear. Linear here we mean they don't necessarily have to follow each other. But for the sake of explanation, the first one is letter D, and it means denial. The first stage is denial. Being at a point where you have not agreed that the loss has happened. One time I lost my phone, and I remember even when I could see the person running with it, I was still looking for it in my pocket. Sometimes you can lose a relationship, you can lose someone to death, and you're still not in acceptance. You have not yet accepted that the loss has happened. That is the state of denial. And this state of denial is very challenging because there can be no healing when you are still in denial. And this denial sometimes prevents even you to express your emotions. Sometimes you cannot even cry because you don't even feel like it has actually happened. You are in a state of confusion, worry, and even at a point where you cannot really feel the loss. But when it hits you that it has happened, now you go to the next stage. You start experiencing anger. Anger is where you become angry. Angry with who? With anyone or anything that you feel caused the loss. For example, you can be angry with the vehicle that killed the person, the driver. You can be angry with God. You can be angry with the hospital, the doctors. You can be angry with your family members who never contributed when you needed them. You can be angry with that your ex-husband. You can be angry with that child. Why was she playing around the swimming pool? You can be angry with whatever, anything, the time, the gods, and you are expressing your feelings through anger. And this anger, again, it prevents complete healing. Because of what? Anger is a point of defense. You are defending yourself from what might have happened. It's not very far from denial. Then from anger, you go to bargain. Bargain means what? You are wishing that this loss happened in a different way, in a different time, in a different circumstances, or maybe it found you in a different state. For example, you may lose a mother, and because your dad has never been disciplined, he has always been irresponsible, he has always been in the drinking mood, you start asking God silently and you don't even tell anyone, why did God take my mother instead of my dad? You start even wishing you lost the other phone, not this phone. You wish you lost a laptop instead of a phone. You wished you failed this unit and not this unit. You wished you lost this marriage earlier or maybe later. All those things can happen. We call that bargain, the state of bargain. And this bargain, again, it also prevents complete healing. Reason being, you are giving yourself a chance to negotiate this loss. But then you are not able to get to the far end of it because you are not the one who is controlling the loss and it has already happened. Then we go to the fourth one, it's depression. And this depression is not the normal depression we talk about, the major, the minor depression. This is a state of depressive mood. This is a point where you feel low. Now finally, after bargaining or after anger or after denial or even this coming as the first one, you start feeling, yes, it happened. And now I am at a point where my energies, my emotions are overwhelmed by the particular loss. This is the point where you are not even sure, do I take action? Do I go plan for the burial? Do I go to the court for the divorce? Do I go to obtain the death permit? You are at a point even after burial or even after getting some other property or item or whatever you had lost, or even being in another relationship, you may end up having the low moments. Those low moments are the depressive episodes. And those episodes can go as long as possible. And in case they become consistent and for a very long time, then they may bring a lot of stress, severe stress, which later now may become the normal depression. Now the depression where you talk about even going to see a psychiatrist, going to have maybe even some antidepressants and all that. That's why this depressive mood, if possible, if someone can make it be as short as possible so that it doesn't overwhelm the becoming and also the healing, then it would be very, very advisable. And how can we deal with this state is trying to pick the positive areas of this loss. For example, you have lost a thing or a person or maybe a state of your life. Is it possible to look at it like, what are the positive things even in this loss? In every loss, there is the positive in quote side of it. For example, I hear people saying, we have lost our grandmother at 100, so we are celebrating her life, well lived. God did not let him suffer a lot. He had already brought up the children. All those things, they don't really lower the loss, but they somehow reduce this depressive mood. That's why you find most of the pastors or priests, when they are burying someone, they usually talk about the positive things of this person. The eulogies the positive things about this person. And also during the preaching, most of them talk about the positive things and also appreciate the dead person. So why? To bring the emotions to a manageable level. Then the last one is acceptance. This acceptance is the opposite of denial. This is the point where now finally you are okay, not okay that you have been healed, but you have accepted that the loss actually happened. Now you start healing, or you had your healing there, but you have already accepted. For example, when you hear someone has been knocked by a car, they have died, you'll be in denial for quite some time. When you start seeing it in the news, then you start accepting. If someone was in a coma for let us say 3 years, and then they die, acceptance sometimes is easier. It comes faster, and it can even come as the first one. Then you find yourself going back to denial, you find yourself going back to anger, find yourself going back to bargaining and all that. So this acceptance is a state where your mind, your heart, and your spirit is in agreement that the loss actually happened. And the good thing with this stage is that when you have accepted, then you start taking the first steps of healing. For example, you start going for counseling, you start sharing this with your friends, you start talking about the loss to people you would never have shared about. Maybe it was even something you lost in a shameful way. You start sharing with the people and no one has ever known about it. That's acceptance. But as we conclude this conversation, let's remember, as I had said earlier, these stages are not linear. Some people start with the bargain, they end with denial. Others start with acceptance, they end with anger. It depends on your personality, on what you have lost or who you have lost, and many other things. So, why are these stages there? It is for you to find out, where are you in this loss? what stage are you in, so that you come up with coping skills or coping mechanisms at every stage, because every stage is different. Otherwise, if you don't deal with the loss, it can take so long and inhibit your progress, especially the emotional strength. And sometimes if you take long before healing, you might experience what we call emotional cutoff. Emotional cutoff is where you don't feel anything about the loss. Even if you lose another thing, you end up feeling like a flat emotion. So I would encourage you to look at those stages, the 5 of them. That is denial, that is anger, that is bargain, that is depression, and also the acceptance. And in case you have lost something in the recent past, you ask yourself, where am I in this particular loss? Thank you so much.